G'day Bomber fans, we are almost halfway through the year, well not really, but we're getting there, and as we approach the halfway mark of 2024, we are still yet to see any Essendon debutants this year, despite us having a bunch of talented youngsters tearing up in the reserves. So today I'm going to go over each of the gameless players in order of least likely to most likely to play in 2024, and I'm going to talk about their chances of featuring in the AFL side and what they possibly need to do to get their call up. Thank you to Ashley for the video idea. If you guys have any videos that you want to see, leave the idea in the comments below and I will possibly get around to doing it. Starting off with a player who will definitely not debut in 2024, and realistically he probably won't play an AFL game at all if we're being honest, or at least not in the red and black for Essendon. The big key forward Jaden Hunter was lucky to earn a one-year contract at the end of last season after injury kept him out of all but 2 VFL matches for the year, and to be fair to him, he was impressive on the track at times once recovering from his injury, but luck isn't on his side. He unfortunately did his ACL, an injury that actually kept him from being drafted years ago, meaning he is out for the entire year and will probably be left without a contract. It's unfortunate, but it's also a brutal industry, and Hunter may be a talented high-flying key forward, but his body just isn't right for the sport, so he's not going to debut in 2024, and he will probably be delisted. Next up is Vigo Vicentini. He will also not debut in 2024, that is unless we are destroyed by injury. Vigo Vicentini is an 18-year-old ruckman who was picked up in the rookie draft last year. He is a long-term project player, as rucks often are, and unfortunately for Vigo, he is sat behind 3 main rucks in the pecking order: Draper Goldstein and Nick Bryan. Nick Bryan is actually taking time from him in the VFL in the ruck. In fact, Vicentini hasn't even been playing ruck in the reserves. He's being used as a tall key forward, and to be honest, he's looking pretty good so far. He's kicked more goals than star recruit Nate Caddy, who I'll talk about in a bit. He's had some clutch moments in games. Vicentini is performing much better than many anticipated, but in saying that, he's still nowhere near ready for the trials and tribulations of AFL footy. He won't play for at least another year, and even then, it's a tough team to break into for his position. Both ruck and key forward brigades are tough to get into. They'd probably have to be decimated by injury if Vicentini was to play. What can he improve on? Probably fitness and general craft in both the forward and ruck, and there is a reason he was taken in the wasn't taken in the national draft. He is still very raw, but I like what I see so far. Very physical, very hard at it. I wouldn't be surprised if he does eventually turn into a decent player, but it will take time. Rucks don't usually come good until they're early to mid-20s, so it'll take a bit of time for Vicentini. Alrighty, from here on, we have players that genuinely could play in 2024 in the AFL. I wouldn't be surprised if we see these guys. Lamont Lawal was taken with pick 38 in the national draft. He is an exciting halfback flanker. He loves to run and carry, break lines through sheer speed. After Vigo, he's probably the least likely to feature at AFL level just because there are already a few players of his role in the team. Think of Andy McGrath, Nick Hind, Nick Martin. They're all better. Mason Redman. They're all better options than young Lawal right now, which is not surprising. He's still just a teenager. And to be frank, as of filming right now, he's not good enough to play AFL footy. I would think it would be a last resort option if he was to play anytime soon. He's been slow to get going in the VFL, hasn't really brought his flair and fun into the team's game style yet, but that's not a critique. He's only played 5 VFL games. He just needs time, and with time we will see him develop into a good player, I'm sure. He's a guy I was very keen to see get drafted. I actually spoke about him glowingly in my draft videos before we picked him up. I even did a mock draft and selected him with the pick that I think we got him with, so I love the look of him. He's shown plenty of glimpses so far, and something that's actually impressed me a lot in the reserves is his defensive game. He has been a lot more accountable than I thought he would be, for him to play AFL footy, really, we just need to see him build a lot of confidence and start to really impact games with his attacking work in the defensive half. That's what we drafted him for. We need to see him really start to get going with ball in hand, and I'm sure he will eventually, but gut feeling, I say he probably doesn't play seniors in 2024. Not a bad thing, though. Still very young. Alrighty, from here it is really tough to know the order, as in the order of likelihood to debut, that is. Lewis Hayes. Now, of the players in this video, the whole video, I'd say he's probably the best in terms of pure output right now in the reserves. He's a key defender, lanky key defender, Dustin Fletcher clone. He's fantastic. I love him. He really doesn't have to do too much to be AFL ready. Many think he is right now, but I would say he does probably need to put on a bit of muscle. He's still very lean and would definitely get bullied if found out in a one-on-one against a strong forward like Tom Hawkins or Charlie Dixon. So I can see why he hasn't played yet. And also, key defenders or key position players in general take time. But also, I just think our key defensive stocks are too strong as a whole for him to break into that team. We already already have 3 injuries to key defenders, and he hasn't been able to get a game because we have more weighting in the wings. For him to play, we would need 1 more injury, or maybe even 2 more injuries, and even then you could justify getting the job done with what we have. He was emergency in 1 game last year, and I don't think he has been at all this season. Correct me if I am wrong there. I just personally think Hayes doesn't force his way into the team through form. It would have to be another injury, another last resort kind of thing, like with Lawal. But in saying that, I would say Hayes is more ready for the big time than Lawal. He's been tearing it up in the VFL this year. He's probably leading the best and fairest count the way it's going. Do I think we see Hayes in 2024? It's tough to say, really. It depends on squad fitness. I would rather not see him, not because I don't like Hayes, I love him, but because if we do, it means we're missing some good plays in defence. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind seeing how he does in the big time. I think the guys above are more likely to break their way into the main team than Hayes. Next up is Jaden Davey. He has been listed as our emergency once or twice this year already, so clearly the coaches wouldn't mind having him in the 22 if needed. I'd say more than anything, though, that speaks to our fitness in the general forward department. We have a few injuries. He has been fairly quiet in the VFL, Jaden, but he is coming back from a long-term injury, so you can't blame him. But he does apply good pressure, which is what we need, forward pressure, and I still think he's quite lean, which is obviously an issue in the AFL. Really, I just think his twin is probably ahead of him right now. I don't know how Jaden can come into the team instead of Alwyn. And even Alwyn Jr. is probably not best 22 material. I would say Guelphy's ahead, and Menzie, who's been out of form, is ahead, but he's played more regularly before his injury. But the fact we've seen Jaden on the emergencies and just the fact he would inject energy, that to me makes me think we could potentially see him even used as a sub for a game. It's why he's been on the emergencies. So I'd say he's ahead of Hayes in terms of likeliness to make their debut. Less needs to go wrong for Jaden. There aren't as many good small forwards in the team than key defenders, and he is already fairly close, all things considered. But I'd still say if we remain fully fit, he probably doesn't play, or he only plays a couple of games. Much like with Hayes, I'd rather he doesn't play, because if he does, it means we have an injury problem or out of form players. These next 2 guys, I think we see them in 2024. I'd be surprised if we don't. Starting with Nate Caddy, our prize draftee from the 2023 draft. Many were expecting him to play round 1, and honestly, he may have if it wasn't for an untimely preseason injury, who knows. But right now, unfortunately for Caddy, and fortunately for us Bomber fans, our key forwards are firing. Wright is back after his suspension, Langford's in the top 10 in the Coleman, and Harry Jones has found form and is having a genuine impact on games. And Caddy isn't really showing too much in the VFL. He's struggling to find his feet a bit. Only kicked a handful of goals. I actually think Vicentini has been a better option up forward, but to be fair, Caddy has been taking the main key back most weeks. It's been tough for him, not all easy going. And he has been the AFL listed emergency on multiple occasions. I actually think that despite his poor VFL form, he isn't that far off playing AFL footy right now, and he doesn't have to do as much to play. He's a great attack on the ball. He's impactful when it's around him. I think we just need to see him hit the scoreboard more regularly, because right now you can't justify playing him over Jones, who is kicking more goals in the AFL than Caddy's kicking in the VFL. It's probably going to take an injury or 2 for him to feature, but I think we're going to see him at some stage, shortly, and just needs to improve his reserves form ever so slightly, start hitting the scoreboard and demanding consideration, and then we probably see him. And finally, Archie Roberts. This guy could really play soon. I think he's really close, to be honest. I think the way he's playing in the VFL, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his debut soon. Now, obviously not in the coming week or 2 as we have players returning, but he is playing so well on that wing in the reserves. He has such a good attacking mindset, really tenacious and really tough too, despite being small. He's a great kick. He's a bit like Massimo D'Ambrosio, but better at this stage of his career, realistically. I think we made a good decision trading him and getting Roberts. I hope we see him play at some stage, and the good thing is he's versatile enough to play different roles, or ideally as the sub. You never want to see players used as the sub on debut, but he could be an option. He also does have a good tank, though. He can run all day, so he can run out a full AFL game. I think he was 2nd or 3rd in one of our time trials, so definitely able to run out a full game. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. I would be surprised if he doesn't play in 2024, He would have to regress severely or get injured. He's looking really good, looking like a genuine draft steal. And that is that. Those are all of our soon-to-be debutants, hopefully. It'll be fun to see how they all go. Thank you, Ashley, for the idea. And if you have any other ideas for videos, let me know down below. I'm trying to upload more frequently, so open to any suggestions. That is all. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, and go Bombers.